Recording from the Mesa Gilbert line in Arizona, here's Paulson J. Healy.
On this week's episode of Hairdo Uncut, Charlie Cutter brings the fire on box color, spitting some hard truths, so you won't want to miss this one. We appreciate you subscribing by searching Hairdo Uncut on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or the Anchor app. Yes! Thank you for adding Hairdo Uncut to your repertoire of podcasts. As always, you can get in touch with us on our email, hairdouncut@gmail.com. And on Twitter and Instagram, it is hair_do_salon. And myself is Paulson J. Healy. Now, we need to get to the topic, and I actually have a guest on this topic based on a video that we did that is one of our most watched videos on Facebook. So if you want to check it out, you can go there. But Charlie Cutter, a hairstylist here at Hairdo Salon and a Paul Mitchell educator, is here to spit some color truths at us. So welcome, Charlie.
Hi, Paulson. I'm so happy to be here today. We're going to have some fun. This is, my favorite thing to talk about.
Yes, and we are going to do our best to stay a little bit away from being super nerdy about this, because if I ask a question, a lot of times Charlie gets so nerdy and it gets out of control. But we're going to try to keep it a little bit.
Yep, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try and reel it in.
So give us a quick little background on you as a stylist, your history, maybe even a little bit of inspiration of what brought you into hairstyling and why you are a hairstylist today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was just talking to one of my clients about this, that I have been doing hair almost half the time that I've been alive. I started really young. I was really fortunate to kind of know that that's what I wanted to do always. I come from a family of hairdressers, and it was always something that I found I loved. I had a natural knack for. And then as I, started in school and I started to learn more, I really got into the more intricate parts of it, and I just, fell in love. I am an educator with Paul Mitchell. I'm a national color educator, so I'm very fortunate to get to travel and share my knowledge in the Southwest here. And obviously, when I'm here at Hairdo working behind the chair, I love that as well. So I have the best of both worlds.
And we love having her here. She not only is Charlie is super energetic, and what you'll probably notice is that both of us are kind of loud, and I've tried to play with the sound even as we've been going already, because we're pushing it into the red. So I apologize for that in advance, because both of us project quite.
I apologize.
Loud.
There will be one cackle. I know it's coming. I'm going to try and tamper it down.
Okay, so the video that we did was on box color, and it was one of our most watched ones and most commented videos. And a lot of people asked about it, even if they didn't like it. They would come into the salon and they were asking about the video. So that's what we're going to talk about today, box color versus professional color. Now, the goal of the show, again, is not to get crazy technical, but there are some technicalities that we need to get into, because we really feel that people need to understand the difference between professional hair and box color. And so first, what we're going to do is we're going to define what box color is, so that when we say box color for the rest of the time, you all know what we're talking about. So Charlie, define for us what is box color.
I'd say it as a very general statement. Obviously anybody that has gone to a Walmart or a grocery store and gotten that little cardboard box filled with everything to achieve whatever false picture is on the outside of the box. Yeah. Anything that, we call a box color is going to be a non-professional hair color. Okay. So, and some people are like, oh, but I went to Sally's and I bought the tube and the developer.
Yep.
No. Doesn't work that way. Anything that you do not have to have a professional cosmetology license to purchase, we are going to use the terminology box color, because I think that that's the most general term that's used in our industry between clients and professionals.
Yeah, being at the front desk, there's a lot of people that are like, I'm like, hey, how have you colored your hair in the past? And they're like, oh yeah, I do have color in there. And I was like, okay, did you get it professionally done? They're like, well, I went to Sally's, and I'm like,
I love that
okay,
they
but
think that's the middle ground.
Yeah, I know. So that's kind of rough. So again, just want to reference, if you think you're going to Sally's and getting professional color, you are not.
Yeah, or I love the I've never box colored my hair. I only go and get the color from Sally's.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. So and then let's talk. So that's box color. So now that we're referencing that, now let's talk about professional color.
Professional color is going to be much more anything that, again, as a professional, when you have a professional cosmetology license, that I can go and purchase. And the reason that you can't, walk into the same store that I do and purchase it is because, we take years of education to know what these chemicals are capable of. And a lot of them are no joke. I mean, we really do deal with a lot of chemicals and mixtures and things like that can be harmful if not used correctly. So we get the benefit of having a lot more strength, but that also comes with the responsibility of knowing how those things are going to work. So professional color is going to be anything that you have to have a license to understand.
Yep.
And to purchase.
Yeah. So just going forward, just to clarify one more time, box color, anywhere that's not purchased at a professional store or put on by a professional, and professional color is the opposite. Now, here's the thing. So the main claim that box color makes is that it is a one size fits all, but that's not possible, right? Like, and in this case, why don't you give us an example of maybe like two people that go buy the same color box color and they've got two different shades of hair, how that's going to play and how that one size fits all is not going to work.
Yeah. So the whole one size fits all analogy, it can't. And to be honest, if I really were to go into it, even professional color is not one size fits all. There is no one size fits all because there's so many differences. Yeah, there's so many differences.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but it's just impossible.
But it can't. So even ours isn't one size fits all. The difference is that we have the knowledge and the experience to be able to customize that color for you. So when you get that box and it says, yep, you're going to be a beautiful golden blonde. Well, it can't possibly guarantee that because there's so many factors that go into what that box is doing. So as an example, when you said, different, how it would play out differently. If you had fine hair versus coarse hair, I have very, very fine hair. I'm Norwegian is my background. And again, not to get too technical, hair can have anywhere from about 3 layers of cuticle layer, just like you've seen on the back of your bottle of shampoo, that shingle looking, it actually looks very much like shingles under a microscope.
Yeah.
You can have anywhere from about 3 up to 18. So I'm going to be like 3. Very fine, very skinny, very fragile hair in comparison to maybe my best friend who is Hispanic, and she's going to have somewhere closer in the 14 range. Coarse, darker. It's going to take a lot more aggression to open that cuticle, to expand it, to swell it, which is what happens.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot more strength. Well, if we take that same box color and I've only got 3 layers of cuticle and she's got 14, guess how many cuticle layers I'm losing? All of them. So it really comes down to fine versus coarse and also the level that you start at. I mean, obviously somebody that's a natural blonde like I am, if I use something as aggressive as my best friend Savannah does, we are going to have 2 completely different results. She's a natural level 2, which we use a scale of 1 to 10. So she's just barely above black, a very, very dark brown. I'm a natural medium to light blonde. I mean, you can imagine the damage that aggressive chemical that needs to be able to move her hair because the box says it's gonna.
Yep.
And then somebody like me, it's going to do quite a bit of damage.
Yeah. So the one thing that I wanted to kind of reference, so that's awesome. When you see a box colored blonde, how is that different from like a professional blonde? Because you're not at that point using just like color at that point. You're using a lightener as a professional. So how is when somebody looks at that box color and is like, well, I'll get blonde because it's going to lighten my hair. How is that different than when a professional uses lightener and lightens your hair?
Sure. A lot of what we talk about in the ability to lighten hair, to change the level of lightness in hair, is going to be ruled by a chemical known as ammonia. We're all very familiar with it. Very, very alkaline very alkaline chemical. And the difference between lightener and a color, which both can technically lighten you, is the actual amount of ammonia, the percentage of ammonia that's in there. So if you take something as little as maybe a very dark brown, it's going to have a very small percentage of ammonia, just enough to open the swell of the cuticle, to place those oxidative colors, those dye molecules into the hair, and let it close back down. If you take anything up to, like, let's say a powdered lightener, and again, in the professional world, we say powdered lightener. We don't use bleach. Bleach is what you clean grout with.
That's right. That's what
now, when you go to Sally's, you buy bleach.
My bathtub with.
Yeah, so we use a professional powdered lightener, but it really is a powdered ammonia base. So it's about as strong as you can work with. Now, here's the difference. And it was funny. I remember the first time I saw somebody have a box color. I didn't even know this existed. This is a true story. One of my friends, when I had just started going to beauty school, asked me a question. She had gone and bought a box herself. And of course, she's like, oh, Charlie's in beauty school now. So she's going to use me as like her little encyclopedia, right?
Right.
And she gets the box home and I'm like, what is this? It was Faria. I will never forget the smell of this stuff. She opens it up and it's powder and her developer and this and that. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I'm like 10 seconds into school, but I know that that's lightener. In this case, it was bleach, but I know what that is. And she ended up burning her scalp. It was awful. They actually sold the powdered lightener in a box like that. Now, the ammonia itself is not so scary. It's what happens when it's mixed with developer, what happens when it oxidizes, right? So if you have that beautiful little box there, the only thing that you can see in my professional arsenal, I have many different levels and strengths of developer. I have different kind of lighteners to use that have different chemical makeups. I have all the crayons in the crayon box. You have a flimsy little box that has a pack of powdered lightener. It's got like 120 volume developer because it's got to work for my best friend Savannah, right? Who's dark and thick and coarse. And it's going to give you a super, super strong developer. It's going to give you that pretend little, what do they call it, conditioning treatment that's just full of plastic. Because they got to coat your hair with something so it doesn't feel like garbage. And they're going to give you that crappy little pair of gloves. That's what you have in your arsenal. I have thousands upon thousands, and that is not an exaggeration, of combinations at my disposal to be able to completely customize everything down to color, to strength, how much lift do we need, how much deposit do we need, how much percentage of gray. I mean, it's unbelievable, the mathematical equation.
And just like you said, you know, those boxes come with a little bit of conditioning treatment, but it's really just like a jacket that goes over the outside of your hair.
It's silicone.
And we can use Olaplex or a keratin triplex, which actually brings health to your hair and actually fortifies it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that too. It's one thing that, you know, nobody has the ability, unless you're a licensed professional, to get their hands on it. I'm not going to use any names because I know the second I do that, people are going to start trying to find it on Amazon. We have additives that we can actually put into our lightener and to our color that are very chemically complicated compounds that actually rebuild the protein in your hair or actually the bond that holds your hair together is called a disulfide bond. That's the actual bond in the hair that gives most of the strength to your hair before it breaks. And so we're actually able to go in and rebuild and recreate to the best of our ability without, from not playing God, the best of our ability to replace those disulfide bonds and really actually create a webbing of strength within that hair where somebody that does not have a professional license, that's not even an option for you. So it's funny with those conditioners and things like that. You might as well just dip your hair in candle wax because it's really close to the same thing.
Oh, it just feels so soft.
Yeah, for and then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, it's so weird. It feels like wet straw.
Yeah, so let's keep all this in mind. Why is professional customization so important? I know you touched on it a little bit, but let's dive into that just a little bit more. Why is that customization for a specific client so important?
This is what I compare it to. And again, not that I would ever compare myself to a physician, but really, if you would not go to a doctor who every patient that walked in is like, oh, I have the flu. All right, antibiotics. I had a heart attack. Antibiotics. My arm is broken. Antibiotics. Like, you wouldn't go to that doctor. You'd be like, this is terrible care. So you wouldn't go to that doctor, but every time you go and buy that box, that's essentially what you're doing. You're just buying this repetition that is not going to work for everybody. Client customization really is the reason that I have a profession. It's why I have a job. I mean, it's the difference between hating and loving what you have on your head and what you see when you look in the mirror. I mean, obviously there are a few things. Being a woman, I understand vanity. And
No.
and, yeah, I only have to look into a mirror for 12 hours a day. But you know, at the end of the day, when you have a great hair day, we all know that feeling of where you look in the mirror and you're like, yes, please let me run into everybody today. Never works out that way, but you know that feeling that you get when you have a great hair day. Everything else in your world could be crashing down around you, but that will give you such a boost of confidence. And the customization, not only in just the chemical customization, how I'm going to actually achieve where you need to get, which again, to go into would be so complicated on how many facets there is, but it's also customizing, having somebody to talk to about, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm envisioning, being able to look at, Pinterest boards and idea boards and go, I love this. What do you think about it for me? And okay, well, let's do this, but let's do this a little differently. And you really do have that connection with somebody that you get to be a part of what makes them feel good. And that really all does come down to those little tweaks, those little changes. One picture, one different highlight in a picture can make the whole look completely different. So there's multifaceted. It's a very multifaceted question.
Oh yeah, really, no, and I mean, just so that everybody knows, these are the things that that a professional has to deal with when you sit down and they're going to customize the color for you. Because like you had alluded to briefly, you're gonna, a client's going to come in. She's gonna have looked at, he or she will have looked at Pinterest boards and Instagram, and they're like, and then you come back with, well, let's do this. You're talking about natural level, underlying pigment in the hair, their skin tone, the level of porosity on their hair, which a stylist can tell by looking and playing with your hair.
Never lie to your hairdresser.
Yeah, we know you're lying.
Know.
They always know. Previous artificial pigments that may be in there, and percentage of gray if you have any. Like, that's a lot of variables.
And that's just scratching the surface.
Right.
And not to get off topic, because we already have enough to talk about today, if your professional that you are going to see when you sit down in their chair does not make you feel like they are truly wanting to be a part of this customization process, that they're not asking, what did you love last time? What could be a little bit better? Do you want to try something new? I have this great recommendation. I took this cutting class I think would just be absolutely fabulous for you, and here's why. If you don't have somebody that's actively involved in that customization process and you don't feel that, discuss it with them, tell them that, and if they still aren't delivering that feeling to you, then maybe it's time to make a relationship somewhere else.
No, and that goes back to a past episode that we had about trusting your stylist, doing the research on the stylist. Like, if you haven't looked at that one, it's actually our most listened to episode.
That's a great episode.
It was just really good information there. One thing from a customization standpoint, just because everybody overlooks a touch-up as like a pshaw, like anybody can do it, it's so easy. One of the things with the box color,
until you have to cover 100% gray and
right,
resistant, and,
right. But think about this: people when they box color their hair, they're throwing the color on, so there's no, you may be overlapping and everything like that. But when you guys get a touch up, it's you're feathering down. You're looking at all the places that need to be touched up. You're feathering it down a little bit so that there's no real line of demarcation, like when you have a box color, but you've got to feather it down a little bit so all of it gets covered, that you're not overlapping too much on the ends when you don't have to. All those things that they have to look at. A touch-up is not just a throw color on and they walk home. Like, there's some real value to coming in for just a root touch-up.
Absolutely there is. And it's funny, it is one of those things where if we could all just take our heads off and put them in front of our faces. I mean, there's a reason hairdressers don't do their own hair.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I don't. I am very fortunate to work in a salon where I can just close my eyes and go, who has time on Monday? And I know that it's going to be fantastic. But a root touch-up, that term that we throw around, it really is not only... Obviously, we might be using a similar or the same formula. That formula has been completely customized to you, though, right?
Yep.
4, 5, 6 different combinations of levels and tones that went into that. And then the way that it's applied, exactly what you were saying, like feathering down. And I know Paulson just used the line of demarcation. Line of demarcation is any time you see a change in level or color that is a horizontal line, a harsh line. And it's funny, you can take somebody who has professional hair color done, and you can have somebody that does, their own at home, and you will absolutely see those variances. There's no way you can't.
Thank you for clarifying that, by the way.
So and line of demarcation is exactly the correct terminology to use. Some people call it banding. Banding is another lackadaisical way to use it.
Yep.
But you can tell the difference. We've all been standing in line at the grocery store and looked at the person in front of us, and they've got those different lines of demarcation, those different bands of color, and not to bring, I don't want to ever speak bad about people, but the first thing I think is you are doing that yourself.
Yes.
We notice.
Yes. Okay, so there's a few phrases that I hear when people talk about box color, and this is like people who have come in and have used box color for a long time, or stylists playing with that person's hair. Mm-hmm. Her hair was petrified. My hair feels like
a tree.
Straw. Yeah. Chemical haircut. I like the petrified one.
I do too. That was good.
That was actually a stylist not too long ago. It was one of our stylists here, and she went in the back and she was like, her hair feels petrified.
Well, it's so funny because that gives me like an act. Like I could visually see that, like a twig, like you'd snap it.
So why does this happen with box color? Especially, over time it's going to happen because of what we've alluded to already. But why does box color tend to make your hair feel like straw or feel like it's petrified or like a stick? What is happening to that?
A lot of time there can be a lot of different reasons why hair does not feel soft, manageable, shiny, healthy. The normal terms that we would use to describe somebody would describe their hair if they loved their hair, right? When it comes to box color, the biggest thing is going to be going back and touching back on what we spoke about a little bit ago. The developer that's in these boxes is extremely aggressive. Not to mention that the product it's being mixed with is absolute garbage. It is. It's absolute garbage.
Right.
But it's that the volume of developer is so aggressive that you are swelling the cuticle past where it can then be closed back down to protect itself. So over time, swelling, closing, swelling, closing, that cuticle won't shut down. And that's why when your hair is not shiny, light is actually being absorbed because all those little porous open pieces, like a sponge, the light is being drawn in.
Yeah.
Where shiny hair is going to have a nice closed cuticle and you're going to see reflection of light. That's what our eyes see as that shine, that sheen. So over time of swelling it and swelling it and swelling it far past where it needs to be. In fact, in some cases, you're just shearing it off. You're just shearing off the cuticle. Eventually, your hair not only now looks expanded, it also has now damaged the cuticle so much that it can't be closed and it can't even protect itself. So then such serious lengths have to be taken to create like a new false cuticle by using Care Triplex, by using different treatments and things like that are at our at our professionals' disposal. We have to almost create an illusion of a false cuticle to protect all the other structure of hair inside. So a lot of it is what it is it's just the strength of these products. I don't care how careful you are. I don't care who, they're so aggressive that over time you're going to get that drying because the hair is going to expand so much it just can't protect. It can't hold on to moisture and it can't protect itself.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. So does that explain why? Because some people have said, I use it because that box color lasts so long. It lasts a long time. So does any of that
it's a blessing and a curse. And
Right.
And I'm going to step back 1 second before I answer that because I just remembered you said chemical haircut. And that's my favorite word in the whole world. How I didn't start with that one, I don't know. The chemical haircut. I want to go back to disulfide bonds. And again, this is my 5% of nerdiness because I have to say it or it's welling up inside me to not say it. Okay, I want anybody out there. I'm going to try and give a realistic analogy, and I want you to imagine kind of like a wooden ladder, the old school wooden ladders that you'd put up against a building, right? And they have the rungs that go across. The disulfide bonds, the bonds we spoke about earlier as being the strength, the structure holding that hair together, very much like the rungs of a ladder. You could break 1 or 2 rungs of a ladder. The ladder's not going anywhere. You're fine. Climb over that rung. You're still going to be safe. It's still structurally going to be safe. You break one too many rungs, no more ladder. So
on your way down.
It's gonna be what is it, Clark Griswold from that scene from,
Yes.
from anyway
Christmas Vacation.
from Christmas Vacation. You break too many rungs and no more ladder. So when we talk about box color, and we talk about the aggression of the product inside and the developer, you're also doing severe damage and much more likelihood of breaking those disulfide bonds, which you can never completely repair. We can bandage them. We can create a false cuticle. We can do things and wrap them in things, but you can't ever. You can't heal hair. You can't. You can do your best to.
And that goes back to another podcast we had about hair is not alive. It is dead already.
Yes, it is dead. It is absolutely dead. So we can create these false things. But so the disulfide bonds in there is another reason, and that is where the chemical haircut comes from. Imagine your hair's growing out. You've overlapped one too many times. Okay, well, where that overlap is as it grows out is all the same length from the head. Well, guess what? That's where you're losing the ends, right? So that's what we call the chemical haircut. And I mean, Paulson, I know you've been here with me when I've had people in my chair hysterical.
Oh.
Because we've had chemical haircuts that are almost. I actually have something on my Instagram, that Bob on my Instagram, where she lost, whole patches on her head to like an inch long. And I feel so much for them, but at the same time, I'm like, quit your bitching if you did it in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyways, so that's my chemical haircut. Back up. But yeah, so why they last so long. When we talk about professional dyes, one of the things that's so great about professional dyes is that they are, I'm going to generalize here, but for the most part, a lot of oxidative color. What oxidative color is when a molecule of color takes developer to actually perform the chemical the chemical process to make that color permanent. Okay, it's oxidation. Then you have things called direct dyes. There are many others out there, but direct dye is the worst one. It's a straight molecule of color. It's huge. It's obnoxious. It latches onto everything. It's very difficult to break down with lightener. It will not lift out evenly. It is not designed to be taken back out. Okay, so the problem with these box colors and with the Sally's colors, they're chock full of direct dyes. So now you come in, you've been a chocolate brown for the last few years, and you're like, I'm ready to put some highlights in it. I'm excited, right? Well, there's no telling when I put that highlight in and I open up that packet what I'm going to find, because those direct dyes are going to make my life a living nightmare.
And your hair is not going to be happy.
It's not going to be happy, because think about how much more aggressive I then have to be because you've put direct dyes on your hair. Again, not to your knowledge, because the industry unfortunately doesn't educate. The industry is in it to keep everybody uneducated about these things. That's how they sell this box color.
Oh yeah, you've got our professional colors. They all have a box color.
Oh yeah, it's awful. It's
and
do not make me go down that rabbit hole.
No, we're not going there. But just so you know, our professional brands, they all have a box color in the store.
They have their hands in both pockets.
I
mean, ours is much more expensive, but anyway. So when we talk about why it lasts so long, yes, it lasts longer, and that's because of those direct dyes that are huge, fatty, giant molecules that the eye can see easily, but they can't be taken out. So if you really are one of those people that's been a dark chocolate brown for 45 years and you have no interest in ever changing, me and you probably won't be having a discussion about it. But if you have ever wanted to change your hair, you've ever even a slight adjustment, you've now created a huge obstacle for your professional to have to climb over.
Well, and if you've been box coloring chocolate brown for 40 years, your hair, everybody can see it, because like. My thing is like
I hope you like Katy Perry's new Pixie, because that's what you're getting.
Yeah, because you can tell people when they're walking at the store and stuff who takes care of their hair and who doesn't. Mm-hmm. Like, it's clear. Like, I'm like, ooh. And it's not like they over hairsprayed their hair. No, they put a bunch of and we're not even getting into the effect. We're not even going to get into the effect that is super negative about if you're curling your hair with a curling iron, flat ironing your hair, plus all this box color, and then your store-bought shampoo and conditioner. Like, I'm like, you're basically telling your hair, get out of here. Like, I don't like you. And you want it to look like me, who's bald if you haven't seen me before. Like, that's what you want to be.
That's why Paulson's bald, because he box colored one too many times.
Yeah.
The 90s were not good to him.
Right. So, and don't be duped. Like, and I don't know why companies still do this, but like the commercials for box color and for, you know, the models that they have on the boxes, and even with the store-bought shampoos and conditioners, like none of those stars use it, and their hair is like, none of it is in their hair at that point.
They do it because they can.
Right.
Because those
people
images
listen.
sell
Yeah.
product, and
No,
they don't have to be held responsible for anything.
Right. No, it's totally true. And so just so we're clear, when you see those pictures, you see those beautiful people. Sophie Vergara is on a new one.
And the Head and Shoulders. Oh, good Lord, have mercy.
We're not going to talk about that because there's just no way on Head and Shoulders. But anyway, so now we've kind of built this foundation, and one of the questions that always gets asked, or the big problem, and we've alluded to it, is the pricing of fixing this hair. Whether you, want to change it, because even if you're like, oh yeah, I just box colored it once, and I just want to become like an ombre now, or I want the balayage done,
or
like
dimensional color in any capacity.
Hey, I just want something, or if I want an extreme case, or your color looks terrible and you want it fixed immediately, because there's nothing more embarrassing than having hair that's clearly terrible. Like it fits. It's not even like a vanity thing at that point. It's like part of you has left. Like when I don't shave my head, I feel a little more insecure about it. Like people are like, "Hey, that guy doesn't shave his head," because I'm actually bald on top, so it looks like I got a horseshoe, which I feel subconscious
about. That's called a cul-de-sac.
Right. So, but the thing is like, if we want to feel our most beautiful self, if we want to feel confident when we go in, when you go into an interview, you go get a haircut. You want to look your best. You want to look your best for other people. That's not a vanity thing. That's a confidence thing for yourself. So going on that, why is it so expensive to fix that box color? And you've talked about it a little bit, but why does it end up being? Because, the ombre that would have taken maybe 3 to 4 hours now turns into 5 to 6 and maybe multiple sessions, because why?
Well, it's funny there, and I'm going to preface this answer with, I always like to step back and say this, because I shouldn't say all of us, but people have used box color in the past, and by golly, it worked, right? And they think, oh, that I found the magic wand. Eventually, it will always turn on you because of the damaging effects. So I'm not saying box color has never worked for anybody ever. That's ridiculous. They have billion dollar industry. It's the long-term effects and that are really horrible. And then, of course, there's always, and you've seen it a million times, somebody just rushed out to get a box color one time because they thought, oh, how bad can it be to just use it once?
Right.
And here's what brings me to corrective color. And it's a term that's used very broadly now. And there's a lot of discussion in the hairdressing community about what corrective color is. Corrective color has become such a popular topic now because of all of the options available to guests. So now we're seeing all these different dimensional tones and undertones, cool, warms, balayage, root smudges, anything into rainbow. I mean, you're seeing rainbow hair out there in completely, you'll have a professional woman wearing a rainbow hair color. You know what I mean? So we're having just so much more to deal with now, and that's why we talk so much more about corrective color. Yeah. Corrective color is technically, how I would classify it, is any time that we are having to add any extra steps to backtrack from what something had been done previously, right? So that could even be a corrective color. You could have corrective color that somebody did professionally, right? You might have come to a salon for years and years and had a level 3, dark chocolate put on your hair, and now we want to start moving into blondes. It's going to be a nice slow process. We're going to make sure that hair stays healthy, all those things, but those are still corrective colors. They just don't even come close to the corrections that happen when people try and use non-professional color. Now, here's the breakdown of why it's so expensive. at the end of the day, you know, a lot of people forget that hairdressers, like, we are a business. The lights, we have an electric bill. Yeah. Like, the doors have to stay open. So when your color goes from a 2-hour basic process where we're using, you know, maybe 100 grams of color to a 9-hour process where I'm using like 1,500. These are huge jumps, and this is completely within the realms of things that I do, because you know me, I specialize in massive color correction.
We've done them
here. We've done them many, many times, and so it's the amount of time. It's now the preparation that has to go into it. Now there are multiple services throughout there that have to be done to reconstruct your hair before it can even begin. Yep. We have to use chemical clarifiers to remove some of the layers upon layers of garbage that's been put on there.
And just to go on top of that.
No pun intended.
Color stays in your hair
forever.
For a long time.
Forever.
Yeah.
There is no completely wash out. It's gone. It never happened.
People will be like, well, you know, the color's probably out. I got it colored like 6
ago.
months, a year ago, or 2 years.
Nope.
I'm like, no, it's still in there. We've got to get as much out as we can.
The eye might not be able to see it necessarily, or a very faint version of what it once was.
Right. Well, once
those molecules are still in there.
Yeah, the molecules are still in there, even if the pigment's gone. The brown, like, let's say you had a chocolate brown, the pigment is gone, but those chemicals are still in your hair until
the damage has already been done.
True, and then you got to chop it.
Chop, chop. Chop, chop, chop.
So, just so you can keep going, but I wanted to let everybody know, just so that they
it's
know,
a great
color
thing to say,
stays.
Absolutely, because how many times do we say when people are like, "Oh no, it's been like a year and a half since I colored my hair," but you've got, you know, your hair's to your mid back. Okay, great. So the first 6 inches of your hair are not, you know, affected by it. But so these are all things. I mean, just the consultation alone. I've had consultations. You know this. I mean, 45-minute consultations for corrective services, because we have to go through everything that's on there. Because guess what? If you don't tell us, we're going to find out anyway.
Yeah,
and it's just going to make it worse down the road.
And honestly, if you're not honest with them, and they start, and even if they, you know, you just don't even know now. Like the chemicals that are in, you know, people want to spend the money on the hair, but then they go and they buy the store-bought shampoo and conditioner. Well, that puts a bunch of wax inside of your hair.
Yep.
And you can look it up. But
wax and plastic, dimethicone, silicone.
So then once we have to get that stuff out of your hair to
even be able to
start
penetrate.
Coloring. Yeah, it won't go in. So it's like, yeah, you may save money on there, but then it's like your root touch-up just got more expensive because now we got to throw in a clarifier and we probably got to condition your hair.
So now, so now you've got a 2-hour process before we even actually mix up any color. So it's the time that it takes. It's the amount of product, which again we pay a very good money for our product, and we have to have a lot of it. It takes a very big arsenal to be able to do what we do. These are all things that come out of pocket for us, not even, you know, having anything to do with what you pay to work out of your space, and then of course the business itself. I mean, rent and all that. So it all adds up very quickly when you go from an 1.5-hour, 2-hour normal service that's going to be pretty straightforward. We know exactly how much color. We've already calculated that out. We know what, you know, it needs to be, to now this guessing game of this 6 to whoever knows how many hours service. That's why it becomes so expensive, because if an 1.5-hour service you're paying somewhere, you know, let's call it $130 to $150, whatever demographic you live in, obviously that's going to change, but now you're going to 8 hours. It's not going up to $200, I'll tell you that.
No, it's not.
Right, unfortunately. And we don't want to do, that's not something that we enjoy having to tell our guests. Do we wish we could wave a magic wand and be able to do it for free and make people happy? Of course we do. I mean, no hairdresser got into this industry without at least a major part of it being that they want to see people happy. They want to fix people's problems. It's why people think we're psychiatrists and tell us everything in their lives. You know, we want to help so badly, but unfortunately it's why a lot of hairdressers have to leave the industry, because they give everything away and then there's nothing, they can't make a living.
No, and that's the other side of that, is that, you know, if they're going to spend that kind of time on your hair so that you can walk out with healthy as possible hair, then
absolutely.
I mean,
we're not even talking about all the treatments that get added into each one of those bowls of color. I mean, think of that.
So
or how much we spend on our education to be able to even know how to perform these complicated services.
And that's totally true. Do you remember that client that came in who saw a professional stylist, and she had wrapped her hair up? She had just thrown light on her hair and wrapped it up in a towel.
Oh,
and
that
she
poor
came
woman.
in, and we had like 4 stylists tag teaming trying to work on her hair, and her hair, because those cuticles were all open, no color would ever go in. It wouldn't stay at all.
That was a rough one. That was a rough one.
And it's just because that stylist didn't invest in themselves.
Yeah,
they didn't know what to do when she asked.
That was a professional that did that. That wasn't even her fault, which makes you feel even worse for them because it's not even like they did it to themselves.
Yeah.
They tried. Now, it is everybody's responsibility to do a little bit of research. You wouldn't go just walk into any doctor's office. You do have to do a little bit of research to make sure that you're seeing somebody that's the best fit for you.
Yeah.
But that stylist did not invest in the education to be able to give that client.
That was horrific. That lady was in tears.
Oh, it was awful. It was just,
I mean, we got it to
wonderful.
okay, but then it was like afterwards.
We got it barely. Just the fact that we could get it to that we even salvaged. I mean, it was that was, and it was one of those things where that's a time where you go, thank God that I spend the money to educate myself. Because
educate yourself, and that people find a place where they can trust that they're going to take care of their hair and keep going. Even though you think it's expensive in the long run, it's not. It's more expensive to mess up your hair. And if you don't like people making fun of your hair, if you look in the mirror and you don't like the way your hair feels and looks, come to a salon.
Yeah.
Come to a trusted salon.
Well, and think about this too. How many times in my consultation do you hear me talk with guests about maintenance? If you go to a professional and a professional that really listens to you and works with you and customizes for you, and you say, at this price point, I can only afford to come X number of times per year, that stylist goes, okay, well then let's talk about the options that are going to grow out best for you.
Yeah.
A box is not going to do that.
No.
We can actually say, all right, I'm going to give you something that I know is still going to look great in 2 to 3 months instead of in 3 weeks. Your hair is brittle, fragile, breaking, and so you go and buy the same darn box color again to try and salvage it from there.
Yep.
So it all wraps back around to customization.
No, and even still, I know that these have popped up lately, but these customized professional colors that are online, you're still trying to do it at home, and the color might not be quite as damaging, but it's not going to look as well. You're going to have, there's so many other issues with it. Yeah. And again, it goes back to what you said. Stylists don't do their own hair.
No, absolutely not.
They have somebody else. And
any time we do, we immediately regret it.
Yeah.
like the second we start, we're like, this was dumb.
No, it's so funny. Even my sister-in-law, who is a stylist here at the salon, like my wife knows.
She comes in.
Well, she comes in, but sometimes when she hasn't been able to get somebody, like Ricky knows enough to put a touch-up on, so she puts it on for her at home.
Yeah.
Because
you just can't do it your dang self.
Stop
asking your husband. They always overlap.
always. Okay, so that's going to wrap up the show for today. I hope everybody enjoyed the topic. We'd love to hear any comments, any questions, clarifications, anything that we may have missed. We'd love to hear it. So you can, again, email us at hairdouncut@gmail.com. The Instagram, you can search for us on Facebook and Pinterest. Instagram and at Twitter is hair_do_salon. Charlie, the lovely Charlie, is at Charlie Can Color.
Yep. CharlieCancolor.
Yeah, so
and
follow
I
her.
love questions. Follow me, comment on my photos, ask me questions about, if you're a professional out there right now listening, I love to get feedback and talk back and forth about maybe steps that were done. If you're not a professional and you just have a question about maybe the way something was achieved, either to come to me or even to another stylist, I love that kind of back and forth. Obviously, I'm a super nerd about this stuff, so please reach out to me.
Yeah, and we've got, Suzanne and Charlie have done a couple coloring classes, and I know that there are some more that are scheduled ahead of time. So, if you need some hands-on help, if you have questions that are just over Instagram,
we'll help you find it.
Yeah, we'll help you find. Well, we want to point you in the right direction. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. Thank you to Charlie for joining us today, and make it a great hair day.
Well, thanks for having me, Paulson.
You bet.